You know what's weird? I have a friend, let's call him Mike. Mike got a promotion 2 years ago, went from making $75,000 to $105,000, $30,000 raise. He was pumped. His wife makes about $95,000 as a nurse practitioner, so together they're bringing in 200 grand a year. $200,000. And last month, Mike told me they can't afford to replace their 15-year-old couch.
Now, I'm not talking about buying some designer furniture. I'm talking about a basic couch from a normal store, and they genuinely can't figure out where the money would come from. So I did what I always do. I pulled out a calculator and started running the numbers on their situation. And what I found actually made perfect sense. And that's the problem. My name's Jimmy, and I spend way too much time looking at numbers that don't make sense.
Here's what nobody tells you about crossing into that $100,000 household income threshold. The game changes completely. See, the American tax and benefits system is built like a series of trap doors, and most of them are designed to open right around the point where you think you're finally making it. You lose the earned income tax credit, you phase out of the child tax credit, your student loan interest deduction, gone. That education credit you were using, sayonara. If you were getting any kind of subsidy on health insurance through the marketplace, that evaporates. And here's the thing that makes this particularly cruel. These don't disappear all at once when you hit some magic number. They fade away gradually, which means every extra dollar you earn is getting taxed at your marginal rate, plus you're losing benefits. Economists have a term for this. They call it the implicit marginal tax rate. I call it a scam.
Let me show you how this actually works in practice, because this is where it gets genuinely insane. Let's say you're married, filing jointly, and you move from $80,000 to $100,000 in household income. That's 20 grand more, right? Your federal marginal tax rate at $100K is 22%. So right off the top, you're losing $4,400 to federal taxes on that extra 20 grand. But wait, you also live in a state with income tax. Let's say it's modest, just 5%. There's another $1,000. And don't forget FICA, Social Security and Medicare. That's 7.65% if you're employed. Another $1,530. So that $20,000 increase, you're actually only seeing about $14,000 of it. That's a 30% effective tax rate on the raise itself. But here's where it gets worse. At $80,000, you were getting the full child tax credit for your 2 kids, $2,000 per kid, so $4,000 total. At $100,000, you're starting to phase out of that credit. You lose about $1,000 of it. At $80,000, maybe you qualified for a small premium tax credit on your health insurance. At $100,000, that's gone. Let's say that was worth $150 a month. That's $1,800 a year. Your student loan interest deduction, that starts phasing out at $75,000 for married couples. By $100,000, you've lost another $500 or so in deductions.
So let's do the actual math. $20,000 raise, minus $5,400 in federal taxes, minus $1,000 in state taxes, minus $1,530 in FICA, minus $1,000 in lost child tax credit, minus $1,800 in lost healthcare subsidy, minus $500 in lost student loan deduction. Your actual increase in spending power, $8,770. That's not $20,000, that's $8,770. You didn't get a 25% raise, you got a 10.9% raise. And that's before we talk about what happens to your costs when you earn more.
Now let's talk about Mike and his wife specifically, because this is where the dual income trap becomes crystal clear. Mike, $105,000. His wife, $95,000. Combined, $200,000. Sounds like they're crushing it, right? Let's look at the math. Federal taxes at $200K married filing jointly after standard deduction.
First, $23,200, 10% equals $2,320. Next, $70,700, 12% equals $8,484. Next, $89,075, 22% equals $19,597. Total federal, about $30,400. Then you've got state income tax, let's say 5%, $10,000. FICA, both of them, $15,300. Property tax on their modest home, $6,500. Health insurance premiums, family plan, $12,000 a year. Before they buy a single gallon of milk, they're at $74,200 gone. Their actual take-home isn't $200,000, it's $125,800. And now the expenses that scale with income kick in. Their kids go to daycare 3 days a week. That's $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year. They live in a decent school district because, well, they have kids and want them to be safe and get a good education. That's not optional if you have children. Their mortgage is $2,400 a month. That's $28,800 a year. 2 car payments because they both work and their jobs aren't near each other. $750 a month combined, $9,000 a year. We're now at $55,800 in just those 3 categories. Take home of $125,800 minus $55,800 equals $70,000 left. Now the normal stuff. Groceries for a family of 4, $1,000 a month equals $12,000 a year. Utilities, internet, phones, $400 a month equals $4,800. Gas for 2 cars commuting, $300 a month equals $3,600. Car insurance, $200 a month equals $2,400. Home insurance, $150 a month equals $1,800. Basic home maintenance, $200 a month equals $2,400. That's another $27,000. We're down to $43,000. They're contributing to 401ks, not maxing out, just hitting the company match. That's about $12,000 a year combined that comes out pre-tax, but it still affects their liquidity. Student loan payments, $800 a month equals $9,600 a year. Now we're at about $21,400 left for the entire year for everything else. Clothes for growing kids, school supplies, birthday parties, Christmas, vet bills for the dog, oil changes, haircuts, toilet paper, toothpaste, the $200 surprise expense that happens every single month without fail. They're bringing in $200,000 a year, and they have $21,400 in actual discretionary money. That's $1,783 a month for a family of 4. That's why they can't buy a couch.
Now, let me show you something that'll really bake your noodle. Let's rewind to 1990. A household making $200,000 in 1990 would be making about $475,000 today when you adjust for inflation. But let's stay in 1990 dollars for a second. That $200K household in 1990, median home price, $79,100. Average new car, $16,000. Childcare essentially didn't exist at this scale. One parent usually stayed home. College tuition at a state school, about $2,000 per year. Healthcare was mostly covered by employers. Premiums were negligible. Their mortgage payment on a nice house, maybe $800 a month. Now let's look at Mike in 2026 with that same $200K. Median home price, $420,000. Average new car, $48,000. Childcare, $18,000 per year. College tuition at a state school, $28,000 per year. Healthcare premium for a family, $12,000 per year, even with employer coverage. The $200K salary didn't keep up with the costs that matter. And here's the really subtle knife. In 1990, a household making $200K was genuinely wealthy, top 2 to 3% of earners. Today, 200K household income puts you in about the 90th percentile. Sounds great, right? But the 90th percentile in New Jersey, California, Massachusetts, Washington, that's firmly middle class. You're doing okay. You're not struggling to eat, but you're also not buying a couch without thinking about it. Let's look at the math one more way. Single income versus dual income at the same total. Scenario A, one person makes 200K. Spouse stays home. Costs you eliminate: second car, $400 a month payment, $100 a month insurance, $150 a month gas, equals $7,800 per year. Full-time daycare, $30,000 per year. Commute costs for second person, $1,200 per year. Work wardrobe for second person, $1,000 per year. Convenience costs, eating out more, paying for services, $3,000 per year. Total saved, $43,000 per year. Scenario B, two people each make 100K. After taxes, that second 100K brings home about $65,000 after federal, state, and FICA, minus the $43,000 in costs created by having two working parents. Net benefit of the second income, $22,000. Someone is working full-time, 40 to 50 hours a week for $22,000 a year. That's $11 an hour. That's a scam.
So what do you do about this? First thing, you stop believing the lie that you're rich. I know that sounds obvious, but genuinely, people making 150K, 200K, even 250K in a dual-income household are told constantly that they're high earners. They should feel grateful. They should stop complaining. And that narrative keeps you from asking the right questions. Here's what actually matters. 1. Understand your effective tax rate versus your marginal rate. When you're looking at any financial decision, whether to take a raise, whether to have a spouse go back to work, whether to do a side hustle, you need to know the true cost of earning that next dollar. If you're losing benefits, paying marginal taxes, and incurring costs to earn the money, you might be netting 30 or 40 cents on the dollar, maybe less. That doesn't mean don't do it. It just means go in with your eyes open. 2. Optimize for tax-advantaged accounts before you optimize for income. Max out your 401k. Max out your HSA. Use dependent care FSAs. These aren't sexy. They don't feel like you're winning, but they're the only tools you have to lower your effective tax burden when you're in this income range. A $23,000 contribution to your 401k at a 22% marginal rate plus 5% state rate saves you $6,210 in taxes. That's real money. 3. Question every necessary expense. I'm not telling you to stop buying coffee or cancel Netflix. I'm saying look at the big stuff. Do you need two $35,000 cars, or would two $20,000 cars do the same job? That's $300 a month in payment difference, $3,600 a year. Can one of you work remotely and ditch a car completely? Is the $2,800 a month house really that much better than the $2,200 a month house? That's $7,200 a year. These are uncomfortable questions because they reveal that a lot of what we think is necessary is actually just expected, and expectations are expensive. 4. If you're genuinely stuck in the trap where one spouse working costs almost as much as they make, consider whether it's temporary or permanent. If it's permanent, you might be better off restructuring. One person focuses on career, the other stays home or works part-time in a way that doesn't trigger the cost cascade. But if it's temporary, like daycare costs that go away when kids are in school, then you're playing a different game. You're investing now for future flexibility. But either way, know which game you're playing.
Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It's designed to capture as much tax revenue as possible from people who make enough to tax, but not enough to have fancy accountants and offshore structures.
It's designed to make you feel like you're doing well, so you don't ask harder questions about where your money is actually going. And it's designed to keep you on the treadmill. Because if you're making $200K and barely saving, you can't leave your job. You can't take risks. You can't tell your boss no. You're trapped. Comfortably trapped, but trapped. And look, I'm not saying everyone making $100K or $200K is struggling. Some people have it figured out. They bought their house in 2012, they don't have student loans, their parents helped with the down payment. Good for them, genuinely. But if you're sitting here watching this and you're thinking, wait, I make good money, why doesn't it feel like it? You're not crazy. You're not bad with money. You're just in the trap. And the first step out is seeing it clearly.
Mike ended up keeping the old couch, but he did something more interesting. He ran the numbers on his wife cutting back to 3 days a week at the hospital. Turns out, after child care savings and tax adjustments, they'd only lose about $15,000 a year in actual take-home, and she'd get 2 extra days a week with their kids. They're trying it for 6 months to see how it feels. I don't know if it'll work, but I know this. They're asking different questions now. Not how do we make more, but how do we need less? And that question might actually have a good answer. Anyway, that's all I've got. If this helped you see your own situation differently, let me know in the comments. I read all of them. And if you know someone stuck in this same trap, someone making good money but feeling broke, send them this video. Because the trap only works if you don't see it. I'm Jimmy. Stop trusting the system. Start trusting the math. I'll see you in the next one.